Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew, and here's another episode of Comics from My Spinner Rack. And it's been a while, random comics from my spinner rack, not to be confused with other spinner rack channels, which they are. I'm going to review 5 comics, seemingly at random. Some of the stuff is new that I put on my spinner rack, and some of the stuff I yank out of the spinner rack. So, Action Comics Weekly. If you're a lot younger than me, which is a lot of fans, you may not know this existed. Action Comics was the birthplace of Superman, and it stayed Superman for years and many decades. Then this is 1989. This is post-Crisis on Infinite Earths, and DC, they did like a gradual reboot of stuff, and it was just really odd, but there were a lot of gems. What they decided to do is Action Comics just wasn't selling that great before the before the Triangle era of Superman, where you had John Byrne doing an issue, you had Marv Wolfman, you had Dan Jurgens, all those really top creators doing a book every quarter, and they'd have triangles in the middle, so it would be like 7, the next one would be 8, which would be like 4 titles from Superman, and you had 4 triangles, so if you got them all at once, you knew what order to read them in. When I was full-time with DC for years, I used to love that. I would set those aside, knew what order to read them, because he would send them once a month, so I had everything DC published that month as a comp. I used to pull that, and the Batman books and other stuff. So Action Comics Weekly was sort of like at the end of the run for a while as a solo Superman book. They changed it. It did become, how can I put this? It was an experiment. They decided to do, we'll do a weekly book with an anthology with all these top characters, and it lasted for a while, but the logistics were tricky as far as getting a book out weekly that was double-sized, and because even the editor, I think it's Mike Gold, even says it at the end. Give me a second here. And he just says that, wait a minute. Because releasing 42 comics, all 48 pages in 43 weeks, DC doesn't ship comics in the week between Christmas and New Year's, is a major feat, and one which we're quite proud. The sales on this series were quite good. Not as good as we might have hoped, but certainly more than sufficient to continue publication. So why the last? There's deadline problems, shipping problems, because back then you didn't have JPEGs. You had all these different artists and writers. The artists would have to FedEx the artwork in, and it wasn't always the same artist. So anyway, this is like a real great love letter to Green Lantern. Actually, it is. Cover is by Ross Andrew, Classic Arts, and inked by Aaron Shanower, who he did some issues of Nexus for First Comics, but he's most known for doing these great graphic novels on the many novels that are based around the Wizard of Oz. Like, Wizard of Oz is only one of many novels, and he had done a whole bunch of them, and his stuff is beautiful, really beautiful stuff. But the quality of the creators is just out of this world. If you've ever seen Green Lantern before, you would know that is a Gil Kane page. As I zoom in, there. That's when Abin Sur was dying, but this time it's Clark Kent. But look at those inks. And here's the cornucopia of fantastic creators. Gil Kane's inking himself, and it's neat though, because his outside cover is usually real fat with a marker, but you're going to get teams by like Steve Ditko, inked by Art T-Bear, Jim Aparo, inked by John Nyberg, Kurt Swan and Ty Templeman, Jim Mooney and Ian Aiken and Brian Garvey, Carmen Infantino, inked by Kevin friggin' Nolan. It is just really great. This caught my eye, and I thought, I'll just give it a shot. There's Justice League Europe, brand new at the time. Now we're going into Ditko, but RT Bear is he's adding more variety of line, because there was a time where, when Ditko came back to Marvel, that he sort of had a mono line for most of his work. And as much as I liked his stuff, I always thought, he could use an inker because it was real heavy-handed. Of course, I was one who thought, I should be the inker. Really good stuff. It's good stuff. So I just posted some of the changing of the characters. Now there's also ones that I'm not sure are credited or not. Like that page there is really like Kevin Maguire. That is so Kevin Maguire. So, but it's not on the front. I don't know. Then you get Jim Aparo, classic artist. Get the guy Gardner being a dick. And I think, this is Kurt Swan, inked by Ty Templeton, who did, he created Stig's Inferno, and he's done a lot of indie stuff, and he's done some mainstream stuff, and I had the fortune of inking Ty on a couple of issues of a mini-series called Spider-Man Human Torch, which came out around 2003, and I loved inking his stuff. Although he was really heavy with the graphite, it's like it took a lot of erasing. Like I'd have to erase a lot of it before I even apply to ink, because it would probably just lay on the on top of the carbon. But yeah, fun though. God, it was fun. And here, see now, there's different pages and different panels where they're moving people around. Now, what's this you say? That's beautiful. To an amazing friggin' combination that is just stunning. It is Carmen Infantino, inked by Kevin Nolan. Now, at this time, a lot of people, myself included, see, it jumps back to Aparo. Carmen's stuff was getting, sloppier and sloppier, mushier and mushier. See, there's some more Aparo, but then down here is the Infantino, and you go to the Kevin Maguire. I don't know how the name didn't get on the. This is undoubtedly, like, this last panel here, that is such an Infantino panel, but look how Nolan has spotted the blacks on it. I mean, he took kind of the zigzaggy scratchiness out of it, and Kevin Nolan's just so friggin' genius. It's insane. But I really recommend it. It was great. Great. Okay, Ex-Mutants. I remember during the black and white boom, you had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles just took off like a rocket ship, and you had a ton of imitations. You had the Dirty Jean pre-teen Kung Fu Kangaroos. You had the something adolescent something or other. Well, this was Ex-Mutants, and what's funny is they managed to dodge any legal action from Marvel, because they owned X-Men this, X-Men that, but they did not at the time. This is 86. They didn't have copyright on the word mutants, and this whole thing actually ties in. It's not just a cheap name to take, and it's by Eternity Comics, which is one of 4 different comic book enterprises that it's a long story. There's one publisher, but they made it into 4 publishers who broke it up into Arcel and some others. So you got Ronald Lim, but it's really Ron Lim, and these other guys I don't remember ever showing up again. But maybe they went elsewhere. But it's in a post-apocalyptic future, because those are the most fun. And one of the guys, he has some genetic, how can I put it, just genetic ingredient that is going to make mutants, the whole world turn into mutants from mutual destruction via nuclear bombs into humans. So there we go. Belushi, it's so silly, but it's fun. This is Ron Lim, as a kid. I mean, storytelling's top notch, and there's a lot of story to tell in this issue. Oofa. I mean, most people would be just like, oh, well, I'll just make this into one panel of this stuff happening. And I wouldn't fault you if you did. But, Ron's he's always been great. He did Silver Surfer for 100 years. I inked him on some, I inked him on some Guardians of the Galaxy stuff 10 years ago. It's been 10 years already, where it was for, it was actually for Disney. And I don't know if Disney and Marvel had gotten together at the time, but it was for a lot of children's books and stuff like that. I was inking Ron Lim, and also they made stickers out of it, all kinds of stuff. Now, this is Sergeant Fury, probably the most, except for issue 1, this is probably like the most expensive one to get in a back issue. I was at a department store like 20 some years ago. I mentioned this before with the Submariner number 6 or number 8, where they had, second printing there, they have, I don't know what it was, they had a bundle of different Marvel books for like dirt cheap. It was like $14, and there was like maybe 14 comics in there, but they were all various eras. One of them was an amazing fantasy or amazing adult fantasy. So you got the old, you got the, and Sergeant Fury and his pals are always just kind of chuckling it up while they're fighting. The kind of stuff that you would see like in the like the Burt Reynolds 70s movies. And just like knocking shit everywhere. There comes back Captain America and Bucky. I love that. Do. Yeah, that's a very copied pose, but it's a great pose. I love that guy's head. He's like, yeah. And then Bucky tries to hide as one of the, I can't think of their name. You know what I'm talking about. The junior such and such. Youth. You know what I'm saying. Great stuff. So he throws a potato masher, i.e. a grenade, sticks it in there, blam. So, there we go. Really good stuff. And here we go. Goodbye, Flash. Last issue. Well, this came out concurrently with the issue of Crisis on Infinite Earths by Marv Wolfman and George Perez, as well as Dick Giordano helping out on inks and Jerry Ordway helping out on inks. That was masterful. Well, this is the very last issue. For years and years before this book, I'm talking like at least 2 years, there was the trial of the Flash, and supposedly he had killed the Reverse Flash for killing his wife Iris Allen, and he was on trial for the longest time, and Cary Bates was writing it, and Infantino had come back to DC. I think some of his artists, that's where they belong. It's like there's certain, like Aparo he was a DC artist. It's like Jose Garcia Lopez was a DC artist, but Infantino at Marvel was just a really bad match. It really didn't work that well for a variety of reasons. So there's a lot going on. Cary Bates wrote it, I think. I can't find it where it was. Yeah, it's in the back. But and it's inked by Frank McLaughlin, who I've always really liked. I've always liked his stuff. He's one of those guys that, I don't know, he's just real. See, and he's kind of taken the... It's improving on it, okay? It's like the last few years of Infantino's career, he just got real sketchy now. Although people were really, really nostalgic for his Star Wars stuff. He did that for a few years. People really loved it. And but I wasn't into any of that Star Wars stuff. If it was, I thought, it doesn't count. It's not in the movies. It's before the word canon became so popular. A new town, new member, a new beginning in Hollywood. No Batman. Her name was Looker, and the joke was that instead of an L, it should have been H. And there wasn't much. Later on, when Alan Davis would take over this book, it got pretty decent. So Barry Allen had his face changed, his hair changed. So when he revealed himself at the end of a book, which was on trial when he had unmasked, he didn't look like Barry Allen, which was pretty smart. So I'm reading, and it goes it's like a lot of inside baseball stuff that I think it might have been around here where I lost interest. I wanted to like it. I wanted to read the whole thing. The biggest problem was, see, like here, it's just like a lot of words and just maybe some pieces of a body there, and it's hard to get excited about that. Well, also, just in general, the story, there was, concurrently with this book, I used to collect the Comics Buyer's Guide, and there was a writer who was also a lawyer called Robert Ingersoll, and he worked for the Comics Buyer's Guide. It's just a columnist. He wrote, his column was called "The Law is a Ass," and it wasn't deliberately poor grammar. He was quoting from a Charles Dickens book, and that was the name of his. And he would go over every issue and point out all the legal gaffes that happened. Because Cary Bates, he wrote good stories, but he wasn't a lawyer, and I'm sure he had a passing interest in the law and stuff like that, and how people handle courtroom cases. But every issue had this major. In fact, they did a black and white collection of the whole trial of the Flash. And I always thought maybe at the end of each issue they should have had Ingersoll's articles in it. So, all this shit. And Flash went through a lot of other shit besides, what I mentioned. But at the end, he gets a happy ending. And Mom and Dad warned me about your new face. Come closer. I don't know how to say what I'm feeling, Iris. Don't say anything. Just show me. And they lived happily after for a while. Cary Bates, Carmen Infantino, Frank McLaughlin, Carl Gafford, and Tim Harkins, and M. Snappinen. So it was a really nice way to wrap up the book. You knew he was going to die in Crisis, but if you were getting into the later DC after the reboot, you could have just said, this was the last issue, screw Crisis. So now everything in DC's Crisis. Crisis is this, Crisis, because it's just their branding. So here we got Clobber and Keith Pollard, inked by Bob Wyacek. Look how audacious that is. This is a couple issues before David Michelinie, John Romita Jr., and Bob Layton took over and really gave this book an upgrade. I loved Bill Mantlo. He did a lot, but, I really, even as a fan, I had some of the books, like Old Tales of Suspense, like reprinted in Marvel Double Feature and other books like that, And the problem was, Bill Mantlo was trying, even though it had the coolest characters, I just don't think it was the strongest stories, because he decided, I'm going to play all the hits. Kind of like when Kurt Busiek returned to the Avengers with George Perez around 2000. They kind of went through the same characters that they met before. Kind of like, let's give the fans what they want. That's fine. But in a way, I actually lost interest in that. I'm probably going to lose a lot of customers here. Customers. So Bill Mantlo, he brought back the Melter, and then he brought back Ultimo, and then he brought back the Guardsman, the brother of Kevin, what's his name, and the brother was off his rocker, and then he brought back Sunfire, and then he brought back the Mandarin finally, and that was an issue in 100, and big Iron Man fan looking for issue 100. It was just there. He actually did a lot of the same scenes that had already been there, like a lot of tactics. And that, so it really had it was like empty calories to me. And then they had some other characters that I'll get into that later. They had Midas come back from issue 18 or 19, and he took over Tony Stark's factory. And then they had I'm trying to wrap it up real quick. There was this 7-issue story about Rigel, which is the population of a, how can I say it, from the planet Rigel, and they're from the planet Rigel, and the Recorder, who is a very popular android character created by Kirby, showed up in a lot of other books, but at the time, Keith Pollard took over with issue 107, and I have to say it was a vast improvement. I loved Tuska, but he was just mailing it in. It really was. It had that feel. So I love Alcala on. I love Keith Pollard in general. And there's one of the Rigelians, with the big old heads. So this guy deceived everybody, and Jack of Hearts was in this run because after issue 103, it was great because he wanted to be like, he was new to being superhero and being a superhero. And he asked Iron Man to mentor him after they had fought and all this other stuff. So it was cool because I love Jack of Hearts, who is a Bill Mantlo / Keith Giffen creation. Well, I must create a diversion. I believe I know how. So they send the Punisher to Earth. Now the Punisher, it's Galactus's Punisher from issue 49 or something, Fantastic Four. And they're like, what? Arcturus is making good his threat. There's no telling how much havoc the Punisher will wreak on Earth. So, meanwhile, the Soviet super soldiers are hanging out at the moon, and they see the Punisher come out. You see Iron Man come out later, and so all these Rigelians come out and get some good fighting from the Ruskies. And if I continue at this rate, I'll drain all my power, including life support, and perish midway between Moon and Earth. I've only one chance. I have to channel full power into my tractor beam, let the Punisher himself pull me through space. No, even my tractor beams are limited by a rapidly ebbing power, but if they just draw me near enough to the Punisher, there. I focus my magnetic power pods to metalloid body. No matter what happens, he's not going to shake me. Well, this guy, he beat the shit out of the Thing, and to the fact that the Thing had to almost walk away, actually. So, you're getting into like high stakes here. He has to somehow, somebody on Earth sees what's going on, and they send a missile to take out this UFO, and he's like, good lord, it's a super missile. As Tony Stark, I advised the government not to build it, but the fools at the Pentagon must have gone ahead anyway. I know the bomb's power. I don't stand a chance unless he managed to turn the Punisher around to take all the brunt of the blast. But he's still magnetically clamped to him as they fall to the earth. Meanwhile, Pepper and Happy are just saying, it's great, being on the country, whatever. All of a sudden, seems like a big old meteorite strikes, but it is not a meteorite. It is Iron Man and the Punisher. And he sees something. He sees I find a clue. This isn't metal at all. It's metallized living tissue. So the Punisher is raising hell, as is his wont. Gets a little distraction. These panels just knock you out, man. I look at that angle. It's like a they call it a worm's eye view when you can see from the ground. But he's like, remember me, Punisher? We fell to the earth together. I'm the guy who's going to stop you. I'm the one who's going to stop you any way I can. And he does this roundabout with his fist. He used to do this I don't know, these big roundhouse punches like a billion at a time. And so, breaking out the skates. Got Iron Man getting away. They're about to hit. Wow. Boy, I love that panel there. I'm alive, and so is he. Great. This is like Michael Golden quality stuff with the way that he's being rendered by Alfredo Alcala. It just really has a nice Michael Golden feeling to it. And these two pages sort of do. Just happenstance, The sensor scan of my biochip indicates that the Punisher's not invulnerable. He's as fast as strong as ever, but the missile hurt him intentionally. Internally. I've got to boost my remaining power up to full, bypass all safety measures, and tap all the reserves. I can only maintain this level for a few seconds and pray that I'm not late. Pow! This must be how Thor feels, bursting with strength, with Ron awash. Every nerve awash with raw power, but I'm risking death from overloaded circuitry. I've got to hammer at the Punisher and keep striking him at my peak power so he doesn't discover the internal damages that regenerate his missing biochip. And I've got to finish him off before my desperate gamble finishes me. He's out. the former, thug of Galactus. Man, I would love this page. Is so beautiful. It's like finally, Iron Man's like he's not. So many times before this, Bill Thomas. Sorry, I told you this is my first time back. Bill Mantlo, he even brought back shades of Tony's heart problems, and that was just like, oh please. So this probably the toughest that Bill Mantlo ever wrote Iron Man, and it was a good send off. There's like 1 or 2 issues left, and you get a Fred Hembeck lettering. I mean, it's actual letter, but he did it in cartoon form. It's just great. I love it. I remember when I first saw it, it was cool. And then I saw Hembeck did his own magazines. I ate them up. So, recorder comes down, yada, 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 the end. Then the unicorn shows up. Well, hope you like that. A lot of fun. And I'll try not to be such a mushmouth next time. You all have a great day, and see ya.